There is a beef brewing between ESPN's Todd McShay and Ohio State wide receiver Jaxon Smith-Njigba. McShay, a draft analyst for decades at the worldwide leader, had criticism for Smith-Njigba that the player, along with the player's family, did not take kindly to. Here is what he said.
Listen, Ohio State star receiver Jaxon Smith-Njigba has declared for the draft. In doing so, he also won't play in the college football playoff. What's your take on Njigba?
Love to see him play, obviously, and NFL scouts would love to see him play. And there are a lot of reports from NFL scouts I've talked to said he's healthy enough to play, and he's protecting himself for the draft. And I got news for every prospect out there. NFL teams know. They know what you had for lunch last Thursday. They're going to know whether you're healthy or not. And if you're healthy enough to play, you need to be out there with your teammates and playing.
And Njigba's brother, who also happens to play for the Pittsburgh Pirates, clapped back at McShay. If he was healthy, he would be playing. Like, what? We not protecting our draft stock? They know who my brother is when healthy? You're sorry, Todd McShay, and so wrong to be on TV making these false claims. So what exactly went down here? I'll tell you. Smith-Njigba came to Ohio State as a 5-star player out of high school in 2020 and the number 5 overall recruit at his position in the country. He was decorated as a top prospect. However, he dealt with a lingering hamstring injury all year. He broke the Big Ten record with 1,606 yards last season, including a transcendent Rose Bowl performance in which he caught 15 passes for 347 yards and 3 touchdowns. Legendary. He injured the hamstring early in Ohio State's opener against Notre Dame and played just parts of 2 more games against Toledo and Iowa. Smith-Njigba caught just 5 balls this season for 43 yards as the hamstring issue lingered. In a statement he wrote, "I did everything possible to put myself in a position to get back on the field this year. After consulting with my doctors, it has been determined that I will not be able to participate in the playoffs. Having prayed on it with my family, I have decided to focus on getting 100% healthy and commit to my training for the next chapter of my football journey. I am officially declaring for the 2023 NFL Draft." Thus, McShay went nuclear through his sources, though Njigba's family continued responding. Jackson's father wrote, "Being with my son yesterday for his first day of rehab and seeing his limitations for myself gave me peace with our family's choice to get my son healthy. Encouraging him to play would be selfish and abusive. I'm at peace because I know he's in the right hands for recovery." However, what this does is it opens the Pandora's box of should college athletes play in the postseason and risk draft capital through this brutal sport, okay, that will undoubtedly see injuries happen. That is the crux. And recall this, if you remember.
Money, the amount of money, like what's the difference as a player in saying these games are meaningless when, Des, we played in quote-unquote meaningless games. I mean, I know you guys were here a lot, but I just don't understand. If you don't make it to the playoff, how is it meaningless to play football and compete? Isn't that what we do as football players? We compete. So I don't know if changing and expanding it is going to change anything. I really don't. I think this era of player just doesn't love football.
This was Kirk Herbstreit. And Herbstreit essentially said, you know what? Players just don't care about the sport anymore.
That's what I was about to say. We're dealing with a total different mentality when we're dealing with these student athletes nowadays, especially the football players. I mean, their whole mentality right now is about the championship, the playoff. We got to get into the CFB or the CFP. And because of that, they don't value the bowl games. Now, when we were coming up, Herbstreit and myself, like to go to a bowl game was a huge reward for a fantastic season. That's what it meant. It's like, okay, your team played this well, so you're going to be rewarded by going to this bowl game. You're going to get a ring. You're going to get swag.
To be clear, this is what the network has done many times over.
Now, kids don't really care about that. They have a sense of entitlement, and it's like if we're not going to the one that matters, then it just doesn't have as much value to them as it did us growing up.
As we reflect, this was a point former Herbstreit teammate on the worldwide leader, Dan Le Batard, completely disagreed with.
Love of football has gotten Kirk Herbstreit all of the things that he wanted from life. And now because kids won't play in a made-for-television stupidity that is college football during a pandemic, Herbstreit has to apologize and walk back the idea that he's telling kids that are sitting out bowl games that they owe him something as the only guy at ESPN who gets to fly in a private jet because of what flies over as injustice, that sport. He's telling the kids they don't love the game because they're opting out of bowl games. As I'm watching bowl games all over the place, and I'm alarmed by the number of injuries. Kirk Herbstreit is the most powerful college football voice there is. And what he said was keep the system the way that it was so that it conveniences me and us and not the players.
Now, let's be clear about what we're talking about here. We are talking about a sports network that makes an investment to broadcast these bowl games, college football playoff coverage, blah, blah, blah. It benefits them for the star players to play. It benefits them to utilize their sources through the draft process to give them incentive and vehemently disagree and chastise those that choose to sit out. And I'm not saying Smith-Njigba is sitting out because he wants to get ready for the draft. I believe he is hurt. But if he were to sit out, who cares? I'll tell you who does. ESPN. ESPN and their media personalities. Because the best way for them to get a larger return on their investment is for the star players to play. But McShay took his opinion to another level with the mere suggestion that Smith-Njigba might be being untruthful about his injury. What McShay did instead was attack Smith-Njigba's character by hinting that the 20-year-old is selfish and a quitter. Those are two of the worst words to be called in football, where players put their bodies on the line for each other. It's one thing for McShay to be an armchair quarterback. It's another for him to be an armchair doctor. Of note, via Cleveland.com, as of this taping, of course, 8 days out from the first bowl game, 13 players have opted out of their team's bowl game. According to Covers, a betting website. That's 0.007% of all starters that will play in a bowl game this season, assuming all opt-outs are starters. Last season, the Sporting News counted 29 opt-outs, or 1.5% of starters. None of those players played for college football playoff qualifiers. Smith-Njigba would be the only opt-out on a qualifier this season, if in fact that's what he's doing. And only 4 of the combined 42 opt-outs, or 0.095% from this year and last, have been quarterbacks. We're talking about fewer than 1 player per team on average here. Only 18 of 84 bowl-eligible teams had players opt out last season. We're up to 7 out of 84 this season. In total, 42 players on 25 teams did or will not play.
I want everyone to see the choice that's been made from their sports entity and then make your own decisions on that and just understand that everything you're witnessing right now is laid naked bare business. And Kirk Herbstreit protected management on that one. He protected the unjust system, and the backlash he caught made him Stugotz. He had to clarify. And I was surprised by that. I was surprised that the tide has turned so that young people can make Kirk Herbstreit feel like dad or grandpa as the voice of college football.